Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. We know that we have lots of authors and aspiring authors who listen to the show, and today's episode is of special interest to you. Lori Orlinsky and Alysson Bourque from Foreword Publicity is here to tell you how you can extend the shelf life of your beautiful children's book. Hey, Lori and Allie, how are you?
We're good. Thanks so much for having us.
Doing well, thank you.
That first voice you heard was Lori Orlinsky up in Chicago. Allie was the second voice down in Louisiana. Why don't we start, Allie, with you? What is Foreword Publicity, and why did you guys come together to create this?
So Foreword Publicity is a book marketing and PR firm that we started. It provides customized campaigns for different authors to meet their individual needs. And so our mission is to give our clients a highly effective PR campaign that will help with book sales, build their author platform and book branding, and secure media coverage nationwide. And it was started during the pandemic when, a lot of authors were looking for a way to adapt to today's times. And so Lori and I started another it was kind of like a podcast in March to keep the audience connected with authors. It was called Ask an Author. And so by doing that, we realized there was a need for society and classrooms and teachers and parents to have an avenue to still be in touch with authors. And so when we kind of wrapped that up at the end of the summer, we still had authors who were contacting us to help them adapt to today's virtual world, essentially. And so we just kind of put our heads together and said, we're going to start this book marketing firm called Foreword Publicity.
And I'm excited that you've come together. Many people may recognize Lori and Allie from their appearances on the show to celebrate their books. They're very successful, award-winning authors. In fact, Allie's book was just named a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, and Lori has two books that are certified great reads. Lori, what you and I have known each other longer than I've known Allie. One of the things that you and I have talked about is that there are a lot of the Kidlit community is really helpful, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help authors along this road. But there's also a lot of people who are looking to take advantage of authors. And so that's why I was excited when I heard that you two are teaming up. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that authors, especially indie authors, should be aware of so they're not taken advantage of?
Absolutely. The foundation of Foreword Publicity is really transparency. And Allie and I we always joke that we're the guinea pigs for our clients, because we have been in this situation where we've published a book and we're kind of like, what's next? And we had to figure all of that out. So we have applied for awards that have been really great, and we've won. We've sunk money into awards or reviews that haven't been so great, and we haven't seen the return on that. And with that also comes, unfortunately, because the author community is so raw and so ripe, there are people that do look to take advantage of authors. I mean, so many times when you join those communities, you do see those messages come up. Hey, is anybody looking for promotion? Please message me. And then you find out, you kind of get hooked into a web of, well, it's going to cost $200 for this and another $1,500 for that. And you kind of get into a cycle. And it's really important to do your homework as an author. And if you're looking for a firm or somebody that you want to represent you, I think first and foremost is see if they have previous clients and what those clients have to say. I wouldn't necessarily go to a website and trust a testimonial, because people can put anything up there. I would contact a real person and say, have you worked with this person? Have you worked with this agency? What were some great experiences? What is maybe something that you didn't like? And one thing that's really important is what you pay a PR firm for is the facilitation of outreaches and a cohesive plan and their time to implement a plan. And I think that there's a misconception out there because there are a lot of people that are charging fees to get on certain shows. They're calling them booking fees. And some of these shows are free. And so that's a big red flag to someone. If someone says to you, I'm going to charge you, whether it's $5 or $500, booking fees shouldn't ever be part of a PR plan. You should be paying a PR firm for a cohesive strategy and implementation of that strategy. And so I just always caution authors to do their research, do their homework, and make sure you're talking to other authors and asking for their feedback.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That, you brought up a point about booking fees. Being a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast, we've been saying it for so long. It's fun. It's easy. It's a great way to tell thousands of people about your book. And the best thing off, it doesn't cost a thing. You don't need anybody to facilitate it or whatever. So yeah, to hear that there are some people out there that are charging, and saying, well, it costs this much to get on. I do know that there are podcasts out there that do charge. If you want to be on my show, you have to pay this much money. What I hear, I don't know about what your feeling is. I've talked to some different PR firms based in New York, here in Boston, L.A., and they all tell me that they won't even deal with a pay-to-play site like that.
And some people, I think it's okay if there's a podcast that's a pay-to-play, but you're hearing that information directly from the producer of the podcast. Maybe the fees go towards the production. They might have voiceovers. But to have a third-party charge, and that's another thing, too, is if you're paying somebody, I would always ask for receipts. Either as a client, you should pay those yourself, or you should ask for an itemized receipt. And one thing that we do for our clients at Foreword Publicity is not only do we either pay them and show them an itemized receipt or let them pay themselves, is we also negotiate discounts a lot of times on award submissions for our clients' behalf. Because Allie and I have been in the business long enough that we've been able to have great relationships with some of these companies. And so one of our award companies gives a 40% discount, which is, up to $300 off. So that's something that's really also a benefit in going with a company such as us, because we pride ourselves on being built by authors for authors. And so not only do we pass along the cost at 100%, but we also pass along any discounts too. Mm-hmm. We're not in the market to charge because we've been in authors' shoes.
Mm-hmm. Allie, Lori mentioned that both of your books have won multiple awards. Let's talk about that. What's the benefit of an author going out and submitting their book for a different award?
So with awards, that's really great for an author to build credibility. Sometimes when you're trying to get your book into a library or a store, they will ask or look at the front cover and see if you've won any awards or obtained any editorial reviews. So it establishes credibility with an author. And of course, there's award companies out there that maybe aren't as high on standards as the ones that a library or store would recommend. And so Lori and I have really narrowed it down to the ones that actually make an impact and a difference, and the ones that the libraries, the schools, the stores want. So, and I wanted to chime in on some of Lori's little do's and don'ts for potential clients. When you are talking with a potential PR firm, you should ask questions and make sure that their connections are in line with your content and that they are a good fit. You want to make sure if your book is based on the pandemic, you want to make sure that your PR firm has those connections, whether it's with a podcast, social influencers, book bloggers, content marketing, that they have the ability to make you a good fit for some of their outreaches. Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, you wouldn't want to be booked onto a podcast that celebrates erotic fiction to promote Alley Cat.
Exactly.
Unless Alley Cat's dressing up for Halloween.
Right. Or if it's like a different, Alley Cat.
Lori, you have a market, so you both are successful authors. So you both have learned, you've made mistakes, you've learned from your mistakes. But you have a background in marketing, so you didn't come into this, babe in the woods. You had a lot of experience.
I am currently the director of marketing at PBS in Chicago, and I've been in marketing for about 17 years. And so my experience has been promoting everything from McDonald's to candy bars to paper shredders and everything in between. And I think this is such a passion project that's turned into a full-time for me because books are what I love. I even have a tattoo of a book on my wrist. My parents hopefully are not listening to this. They think it's wrong, even though I'm in my late 30s. We'll say late 20s, actually. But it's, I've been able to use all the skills and strategies I've learned working at these world-class institutions and big firms and relate it to books. And I think the biggest takeaway is I always say, marketing is not about throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping it sticks. It's about forming a cohesive marketing plan. And that's why Allie and I came up with a 3-tiered approach for book marketing. And we literally came up with this, I think at like a conversation at 2 a.m. or something like that. But we call it the Hype, Build, Grow plan. So phase number 1, you're building the hype and you're getting people excited about an author's book. So this might be virtual book tours. This could be a book trailer. It could be a social influencer campaign and many more. And then you move into the building phase and you build their credibility, as Allie said, whether it's reviews, awards, or podcasts. And then you move into the third phase, which is growing. So it's thinking beyond bookstores. I think many authors have a one-track view and they think, okay, my goal is to get in Barnes & Noble. But in reality, we want to get you in the stores. We want to get you in the libraries. We want to get you in museums, in daycare centers, in school libraries. Books are so much more than just being in a store. And especially, the most recognizable store. Independent bookstores are great too. Mm-hmm. And so most clients do come to us and they say they're in the hype phase, but some clients come to us and Allie and I joke, they need book CPR is what we say. Maybe their book has been out for a year or 2 years and they just need to revive it. And so we will constantly work with them to kind of think of new hooks for people to get excited about it. We have an author who released his book about 2 years ago, and it's a really fun book about a little boy who just wishes his sister would disappear, and he waves a wand and his sister disappears. And it's such a fun book, and we want to reintroduce that to audiences. And so we realized that October 31st, which is Halloween, is also National Magician's Day. And so we, had him re-release his book with that hook that just in time for National Magician's Day, you can hear more about this book. And so we're always trying to find hooks for books, whether it's something timely like COVID, whether it's a mom on a mission to spread encouragement or joy to the world, or whether it's, a fun book like this. And we specialize in children's books, but we can take all genres, and we love a good challenge. Allie and I always joke that for us, the word no is just a starting point.
Allie, this is really great. What Laura was talking about, I think, is really, I like that 3-step approach. I think a lot of authors think that their book is kind of like a piece of fruit, that it has a very specific shelf life, and that it's we're launching this book on May 31st, and if I haven't sold 1,000 books by June 31st, I'm a failure. What can an author do to kind of get out of that mindset and kind of get into the mindset that this is a long haul. This book is not going to go bad. It's here, and I can sell this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. There are classic books that are 50, 60 years old that people are still buying today.
So I would recommend that authors look at their book almost like a brand, okay? And so because you want to sustain that brand. You want to sustain your fan base. You want to develop a relationship with your audience that will last a lifetime. So with the Alley Cat series, of course, each book is independent of each other, but I want the audience to get to know me as an author. I think that's very important for all authors. And also get to know Alley Cat as if she's part of the family. And this can go for any book out there. If you have a character in your book, you want that character to feel like it's part of the reader's family or part of the reader's world. And to be able to do that, you have to just keep plugging it and putting it out there in the world yourself. And then it can be sustainable. With the Alley Cat series, my hopes are that, these readers that I have been visiting in school visits and library visits, they are between the ages of 5 and 9. Well, my hopes are that one day they'll be parents too, and they're going to remember those author visits. They're going to remember that podcast maybe that they heard, and they're going to say and relate to that time of their life as fun and enjoyable, and pull out the same book, pull out the Alley Cat book, and keep that alive for their own kids, and just keeping that through the generations to come.
Yeah.
Also, piggybacking off the theme, how we kind of mentioned National Magician's Day, we encourage authors to celebrate milestones like book birthdays. When it's your book birthday, keep your book alive and celebrate it. There's so many free tools out there like Canva. Make a graphic and say, today's my book birthday. My first book is on bullying prevention, and so every October is bullying prevention month, so I make sure that book is at the forefront of people's minds. I have another book that's based on the Tooth Fairy, and so I celebrate National Tooth Fairy Day twice a year. So as an author, kind of getting to the bottom of your book, drawing out some themes, and, even Allie celebrates National Black Cat Day, National Calico Cat Day. There's a holiday for everything out there, Jad. You can find find National Squirrel Day. But these are the ways that an author can extend the shelf life of their book by getting in the forefront in a timely manner. And we're fortunate enough to have a few books in our repertoire that we represent, and some of them are COVID related for children, and so that's nice too because that's timely. But the challenge with that is trying to extend that beyond the pandemic, right? On one hand, we want the pandemic to be over, and on the other hand, we want that book to always be timely so we can always connect it to National First Responders Day, there's literally a National Truck Driver Day. All of that kind of stuff, and, can relate it to the flu pandemic, can relate it to other health and wellness things. And so it's just thinking, sounds cliche, but it's thinking outside the box on how you can grow the themes as an author, the themes that you talk about in your book.
Hey, Allie, this is, we're here. You're in Louisiana. Lori's in Chicago. I'm in Boston. This podcast goes out. It's typically downloaded. Each episode is downloaded to 120 different countries, of course, all across the United States. But there's something to be said about building a fan base in your hometown. Talk a little bit about how we can take advantage of becoming a star in our own little community and build from there.
Well, I would take the approach that it kind of takes a village. Mm-hmm. And so when you are releasing your book, maybe form a launch team with your community, your friends and family, everyone who's nearby, the people that have your back, and offer them discounts, offer them a free book if they're willing to maybe help with your launch party or attend your launch party or write a review in receipt of your book. So there are things that you should do initially. Start from your community and look at it as it takes a village, because without that village you can't grow. And so once you establish that foundation, then you can grow, just like with your book and just like our phases. You want to start off applying for awards and reviews, and then growing from there to content marketing and podcasts. And I think it goes for the same, because you need to be able to rely on your community.
And Allie's also being a little bit humble too, because Allie is a celebrity in Louisiana. Why don't you tell them about your Kidlit Pick segment and how that came about?
That was super fun. So we had an Alley Cat Whole Foods party. So Whole Foods nearby was doing a little party for Alley Cat, different stations. And so I went to News 15, which is our local news station and was promoting this Whole Foods Alley Cat party. And so, I love watching other authors with their book journey. And I mentioned to the producer that it would be really cool to have a segment on the show that highlighted and reviewed books. It could be local books, all kinds of books, independent, traditional, and just to show parents what's out there and give a positive message. And so the producer actually called me that evening and said, can you come next Thursday and do this show, this segment for us, and every Thursday thereafter? And so, I've never been a sort of news anchor type of person. I never had any experience with that, but I was up for it. It was something I was passionate about, and I said yes. And I've been doing that for 2 years, which is so great to be able to showcase other authors' works and show some of the books that maybe you won't see out there, front facing at Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I've met a lot of really great authors through the process, and we've done it for 2 years, and I hope we can continue because people need good news.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking on what Allie said too, it starts with the schools and the libraries and the community, and I donate a lot of books to the libraries because not everyone could have easy access to books. So it's important for me to start there. And so when kids go to the library, my hope is that they'll check out my books, that they'll love it, and then they'll hear me again in their schools. We try really hard, and I think the positive thing about the pandemic has been that we can travel to other places and other states very easily, to schools, and read the messages and talk about our books. And so start with your own community and kind of expand there outwards, but take advantage of the fact that the world is on Zoom right now and see if there's any other communities or schools or museums that you want to connect with, even YMCAs, etc. People that might not have access to authors normally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that's really important. Something that I learned from my educational magic show. The first thought is, are you doing something? You have magic. You try to teach kids. Boom, you got to go to schools. And yes, that's been the bulk of what I've been doing. But you're right. There are after-school programs. There's YMCAs. There's summer camps. There are church groups. There are libraries. So many. If you're an author, a kid's author, there's so many different places where kids come together, dance studios, karate studios, football teams, all sorts of kid communities that you can go and work with and, market your book through. So this is exciting. I think you've given us a lot of thought about how different ways, how we can author our books, how we can promote our books. One thing I just want to ask both of you before you go, one of the things that I've heard a number of times in doing the podcast is, I'm an author. I'm not a marketer. I don't sell books. I'm an artist. I'm an author. What do you say to somebody who tells you that I wrote a kid's book, but I don't do marketing?
I would say to people, and I've learned this the hard way, is that you do you and you do what you're good at. And for things for areas you may lack in, find someone else that's good at that and pay them to outsource it. And then you can focus your time and energy on excelling where you excel, and you can have, your payments go towards something that will hopefully boost you up. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Allie, I know you're creating a specific brand. You talked about building a brand. Is this something that happens overnight, or do you need to start looking at it as a long-term project?
Well, it definitely is a long-term project. In the beginning, you have to really organize your thoughts on where you see this in 5 years. And so you want to make sure that you have all the characters in your mind and ready with their different personalities. You want to be diverse also with your characters. And look at it as a long-term project, and know that you may have all of these goals that are just fueling inside of you, but to be patient and just know that it is a marathon and not a sprint, and just know that, your fan base will develop. It might just take some time, but just make sure you connect with those readers.
Yeah. This little author out there. I can't think of his name. Dan Brown. I understand that he wrote 3 or 4 books before the Da Vinci, and those 3 or 4 books didn't go anywhere until the Da Vinci Code was written. And then once that book was written, people went back and they bought those first 3 books, and they became massive bestsellers after the Da Vinci Code came out.
Yeah, and that goes to show you that you have to develop yourself as an author too, and connect with your audience and your readers. You want them to trust you. You want them to relate to you. Yeah. You want them to be a part of your world, your literary world. Yeah.
And be outwardly thankful. If somebody reviews your book and they have 10 fans on Instagram, if they have 10,000 or 1 million, take the time and say thank you for reviewing my book and respond to comments. It doesn't take a long time, but it creates a two-way conversation. And I think a lot of times people want to know the person behind the book. So that's really important as well. Yeah.
And that's what my podcast is all about. I learned very early on that you can only talk so long about Mrs. Raccoon's blueberry pie. There are a number of authors who came on at the beginning of the show, and it's like, well, I'm here to talk about my picture book that is 500 words and 30 pages, and I don't really want to talk about anything else. And I was like, okay, well, we're done in 30 seconds. People want to know you. They want to get to know Lori. They want to get to know Allie. They want to get to know the person behind who's creating these stories that they're falling in love with. And
so many times the stories are prompted by our own experiences, and it's just so cool to share that with the world and to hear that as well from other authors.
Yeah, and as I recall, that both of your books were inspired by your daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Tell us where we can go if we want to learn more about Foreword Publicity and how you guys can help.
So people can visit our website, www.forewordpublicity.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Foreword Publicity. We have an email. People can email us at info@forewordpublicity.com. And if they want a free consultation, we're offering that now, too.
Awesome. We've had a great and really eye-opening time speaking with the driving forces behind Foreword Publicity, Lori Orlinsky and Alysson Bourque. Lori, Allie, thank you so much for being part of our show.
Thanks for having us. This is so much fun.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dr. Regine Moradian. She'll be here to answer your questions about how we can best help our kids deal with any stress and anxiety they may be feeling as our nation begins to reopen after this long pandemic. If you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we hope you enjoyed and learned from today's episode, and we hope you'll check out the author services that we offer at the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We'd love to have you as a guest on the show. We'd also love to have you check out our Certified Great Read program. You can find out about both of those programs by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button and scroll on down to be a guest with Certified Great Reads. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guests, our friends, Lori Orlinsky and Alysson Bourque of Foreword Publicity. Also want to thank my team, Alana Doherty, Fatima Khan, Helen Frazier, Justina Thompson. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so much. If you're an author, thank you so much for creating beautiful stories that families can read together. And of course, if you're a family, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.